Are you relieved about inflation figures? The CPI fallen to 6.8%?
Well, it's positive news that prices aren't rising quite so fast, but they're still rising fast. They're rising faster in our country than they are in many other countries, and faster than they have for many, many years. And families and pensioners, when they go and do their shopping, when they get their energy bills, when they get their mortgages, their rents, they're still seeing those going up by huge amounts. And Liberal Democrats are particularly worried today because these month's inflation figures will be used to calculate railway fares for the next year. And so that's why we're calling for freezing energy fares, rail fares next year as some way of helping people who are really, really struggling.
We spoke to the Chief Secretary to the Treasury a short while ago. He's promised that they are being linked to inflation, but they aren't going to be. They're going to be low inflation, and that's a figure that he says is yet to be determined. But he says, those in opposition may well call for freezes for things like rail fares, but they haven't got to balance the books.
Well, we've always put forward a costs of manifesto at election time, so we do balance the books. I'm afraid it's the Conservatives who've been very reckless with government funding, and that's why the country's in such a mess under the Conservatives. I mean, I listen to government ministers, and they just seem so out of touch with the reality that most families and pensioners are facing. And when we talk about these sorts of figures, they seem quite complacent. They seem to give themselves a pat on the back when, families are really struggling out there. And I just wanted a government that seems to care a bit more, and this lot just don't.
Well, the government would point out that in terms of a rail freeze, price freeze, we're at a time now when workers are demanding more pay than ever. Rail revenues are down by a third compared to before the pandemic. They would say, yes, it would be lovely to give it, to give everybody a break, but we have to also live in the real world.
Well, the real world is the economy is struggling, and we need to get people back to work. And one of the things that you would do if you took up the Liberal Democrat idea is you'd boost the economy. You would get more people using our public transport, which we know is important for our economy, for the environment. And so you have many benefits. And that's why I just think the government is so out of touch. They don't seem to get the combination of all these price rises, energy bills, mortgages, rents, railway fares. The combination is hitting people. We've calculated that a commuter family is going to be clobbered by over £300 extra every month due to the combination of mortgages, food, and rail fares. This is a huge amount. And when I hear government ministers trying to say, well, they can't do anything, well, they could do something. The fact that they don't backs up my argument. They just seem out of touch and don't care.
It's been suggested by some that the energy price cap has been fueling inflation and also reducing competition. Should that be rethought?
Well, I'm worried about the energy bills going into this winter. There's a real concern that actually, rather than continue to go down, they're going to go up again. And we think there should be more competition, but we definitely think there should be targeted help for those people who are struggling, whether through what's called warm home discount or the winter fuel allowance. We need to make sure people are not going to be hit this winter and end up being cold, as well as not being able to afford their bills. So I'd like to see from the government them getting it in advance of things. I mean, Liberal Democrats have led the argument on the windfall tax on the oil and gas companies to provide the money so we can afford to help people and businesses. And the government have been so weak on things like that. Liberal Democrats have led the argument for providing things like an energy cap freeze to help people. And it's those sorts of arguments that I think really resonate with people, and they look at the government and can't quite believe that they're just not taking action.
You've also called for a targeted mortgage relief scheme, but there are concerns from some economists that this would fuel inflation further. We've seen today in the Financial Times some of the bank itself.
Well, after the Liz Truss budget, you'll remember, it sent mortgages rates sky high and caused a lot of the turmoil that we've seen ever since for mortgage holders, for pensioners. And it's those that crashing the economy under Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak that have caused all these problems. And what Liberal Democrats are saying is that those people who are likely to have their homes repossessed and be homeless, that is the moment to provide help with our mortgage support fund. And our fund is built on previous ideas that actually used to happen. There used to be support for families facing repossession. Our scheme is based on good practice from the past, and the fact that the Conservatives are turning a blind eye to this and aren't prepared to act again backs our overall view that they're just out of touch. They just don't seem to want to help people.
Okay, Ed Davey, leader of the Liberal Democrats, thank you for joining us today.